Welcome to this special event which celebrates the role of art and creativity in the lives of people living with dementia. Thank you to all our attendees for joining us, and thank you too to the Essex Cultural Diversity Project and to Alzheimer's Society Dementia Friends Programme for organising the event and inviting me to be the host. My name is Mike Clark, and the arts and music are important to me, my family. My father almost certainly had vascular dementia, on top of being paralysed for years without the ability to speak or eat following multiple strokes. His best friend definitely had dementia, and I spent hours with him and his wife, my mother's best friend, post-diagnosis, amazed at what he was telling me about Jamaica and my parents in the 1950s, but unable to remember that we had given him lunch just an hour before. The person I looked up to the most, somebody I would now call my mentor, he was the first person I knew that had dementia. I didn't know why it was that he had become indifferent to me and some of his behaviours towards me, and why he ended up being hidden away by his family. I was suddenly drawn to this world of dementia 2 years ago this month, leaving the public sector to become the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Alzheimer's Society to help in the United Against Dementia work, which is so needed. A lot of my focus was to help with the confidence around equality, diversity and inclusion and the support of people of all backgrounds to live well with dementia. This month I changed roles and have moved to independent age as their head of equity, diversity and inclusion, to the wider mission of helping all of us as we grow older to live well with dignity, choice and purpose. Welcome again, everyone. Through this event, we aim to explore how art will help those living with dementia communicate and connect, and how art can help enhance mental health and emotional well-being, how art can help everyone to live well. There will be a strong focus on diversity, opening a dialogue on how art, theatre and music can help people live well with dementia, personalise the care and support we provide, and reach underrepresented communities. Those communities are not difficult to see where they are, but whom too many organisations end up underserving through lack of confidence and clarity on how best to reach them and understand how to provide culturally appropriate and culturally sensitive support. We've invited some great guest speakers to share their experiences of dementia, diversity, and the arts. Let me introduce each speaker. Speaker one, Dr. Mary Kennedy. I'm delighted to introduce her from the School of Health and Social Care at the University of Essex, a university that my eldest daughter went to. Mary has a particular interest in the role of creative arts in dementia education and the use of storytelling to improve healthcare outcomes. Mary is a passionate advocate for changing the way we think about dementia and plays an important role in influencing the practitioners of the future. For her presentation today, Mary will talk about the arts, education and dementia, time to get creative, and you'll hear this lovely accent coming from the west coast of Scotland. Over to you, Mary.
Wow, thank you, Mike. What an introduction, and welcome everyone. Mike's already said I'm actually based at the University of Essex, and I'm just going to describe, to give you a visual picture of what is on your screen. I'm white, I have short blonde hair, which is a bit longer at the moment because my hairdressing appointment has been come and gone like everyone else's. And uncomfortably, I'm also wearing some headsets with a mic, which makes me look a little bit like a pilot. The picture behind me is the large lake at the university, and Lakeside Theatre is right behind there, where we do many of our arts and drama performances. So what I'm going to do, Mike's told you I'm going to talk about the arts, education and dementia. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our work with our students, and I will talk through some of the work we've already been doing. I'll then talk about our digital storytelling project and why it's really important to be working in collaboration with students and people who are also living and diagnosed with dementia. And then I want to end with a short film. So why do we think about the arts in regards to education? Well, what we're attempting to do is to prepare our students that are not just critical thinkers, but are also creative thinkers. And we want their learning at the university to be meaning, and we want them to be collaborative in the way that they think, in the way that they work when they go into the clinical practice areas. And we do have a responsibility because we are developing the workforce of the future. So the next generation of health and social care practitioners. So we want to, the curriculum's very heavy, and you can see from the slide there, they've got a lot of things that they've got to be thinking about: learning, knowledge, experience, growth, critical thinking. But we want them to draw on the arts and the humanities as well, because we want well-rounded professionals who have that sensitivity to the human experience of health and illness. And as the lead for service user engagement, collaborative working and co-production is really important to me. And I do believe strongly that you need to hear the voice of those with lived experience. Students can learn a lot from the textbooks about signs and symptoms, but the art does help them to connect and helps them to look at some of the difficult emotions. From this slide here, I said to you earlier, Lakeside Theatre was in the background. We invited a company called AZB Theatre Company to deliver Grandma Remember Me, which is a beautiful story that's told through a mixture of puppetry, drama, and storytelling. And on the screen, you can see Lily in puppet form with Grandma and with her dad. And there's also Shandy the dog, which when I first introduced puppetry to student education, I think some of my colleagues had concerns. And I did think myself, will this work? But I, at the end of the first performance, actually thought the dog was real and bent forward to clap it. So you can see how much people really connected with it. And it looks at changing relationships, and it looks about how Lily adapts to her grandma's changing behavior. And it kind of helps people to challenge some of people's beliefs and the acceptance and the understanding of the disease. And it tackles such a sensitive issue in a very thought-provoking way. I'm just going to read the first one, an incredible, powerful and emotive piece and educational tool. What a way to hit home with such important information. I cried buckets. A realistic but dignified and sensitive portrayal of disease courses and how it affects the whole family. Thank you. And that is the kind of response we were looking for. One of the other workshops, and I think Rosalva was at one of those, was the creative arts and dementia, where we encouraged students to come together. We were looking at the benefits of music, looking at art, looking at singing, and looking at weaving. And we were trying to get our students to engage with those activities so they can think about how they engage with people that they will be meeting in practice. And this is a digital story project that we were working on, and David and Fiona very kindly allowed us to come into their home and into their life and film them. David was diagnosed with dementia in 2016, Alzheimer's dementia, and went on to develop Parkinson's, and then went on to develop prostate cancer. And he allowed us to film and hear him talking about how that diagnosis felt and how it impacted on his and Fiona's life and their young daughter Lilia, who at the time of David's diagnosis was 9. So she has lived with Dad's diagnosis over the last few years. And David was an entertainer on cruise ships, and that's what he talks about. And after the documentary, we did a piece of creative writing with David, and just before Christmas we published his book, little short book, A Trip Around the World is Not a Cruise, which is David's life story in pictures and in humour, because he is a very humorous gentleman and believes in laughter and the strength of laughter. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with him in Fiona. And I think the next slide should be a short film that we're going to show. And you'll see David and Fiona talking about being involved in the project. And you'll also see Penny Hodgkins, who worked with David on the project. And then we've got a short bit with Nicola, who does some art work with our students.
I think what's been so good for David, it's been fantastic for him to be able to share his story. You kind of feel...
and back in show business.
Yeah, in a way. It's been really positive for you, and it gets David out of the house, you know, thinking about other things, and you have really enjoyed that aspect of it, haven't you?
I have, yes, and it's, you know, I suppose it's nice to be recognised again and wanted again.
The first thoughts were, well, I'm not too sure about this. Our lives were going to be filmed and put out to the whole world, if you like. But working with you, Mike, and Sam, Marty, and you made us feel very at ease, and so we didn't feel any pressure at all, did we?
No, and I think conversely we actually enjoyed it.
I think it's been told in a really beautiful,
sensitive
way,
way.
Empathetic way, but also for us as a family, as Lilia gets older, this is going to be a nice way that, you know, maybe when she's a teenager we can sit down together. That's something to hold on to for us as well, not only just helping healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, but our family too.
Yeah.
One of the features of dementia that we all know of is the impact on language. And so projects around writing poetry, reading poetry, sharing songs, theatre, drama, writing projects can often be a very good vehicle for people whose voices can be overlooked, to capture memories and to create different artistic artefacts and endeavours that will be exciting for everybody to use.
I think that the arts are really useful to help people both with their dexterity and using their hands and their eyes. It stops you thinking initially because you've become so absorbed in what you're doing. It then frees up part of your mind to start thinking perhaps in another way and tap into parts of yourself that are perhaps a little bit difficult to tap into without having some sort of creative process going on at the same time. I think art is very empowering in that way.
And just my last slide is just to say thank you for giving me time to share this short presentation with you today. And I look forward to hearing the next presentations and seeing everyone at the panel this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Mary. Powerful, empowering, but let me not take up much time because our next speaker is waiting. We're very pleased to welcome Arti Prasad, artist, director and producer. Arti stepped down as Spear Tire Theatre's artistic director and CEO in August 2019 after inspirational and acclaimed leadership for 19 years. She has developed an inclusive creative practice championing diverse voices, and she's at the forefront of immersive sensory theatre practice for people living with dementia and learning disabled people. She has a strong commitment to collaborative theatre with values based on fundamental human rights. The title of Arti's talk is From the Garden to Love Unspoken, which charts her personal journey of developing multi-sensory shows for those living with dementia and her joy of finding a way to connect with South Asian communities. Over to you, Arti.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you and to share my experiences of living with dementias. I am Arti. I have shoulder length hair, dark brown, turning grey. I wear tortoise rimmed glasses and I'm sitting in front of a greeny blue background. I've always described myself as a British Asian, but since last year, I've become South Asian. And I'm increasingly challenging the use of BAME and prefer ethnically diverse when referring to complex communities. Like all of us, I'm very complex and I can't be put into a single tick box. I've been influenced by many different value systems, religions, cultures, and languages. I was not born here, so I am first generation. But in fact, I behave as if I'm second generation, having a foot in at least 4 cultures: British, East African, Indian, and neurodiverse. So why am I telling you all this? Because when working with diverse communities, it's important to understand our history, our heritage, our experiences. It will influence how you plan outreach or creative projects and arts, health, and well-being programs. There is a great connection between art and science. Both areas are curious and have always asked questions that often come from a need to solve a problem. So my adventure into the world of arts and dementia began by wishing to answer a question. My adventure started with an interactive storytelling show called Once Upon a Time. Whilst researching arts and dementia about 10 years ago, I heard care home staff constantly say, "We don't know how to communicate with people with dementia." As an artist, I found this curious, and as a human being, I found it unacceptable. My question became, how hard can it be to communicate with another human being? And so began my quest to answer this question creatively. One of my first decisions was that I would not focus on reminiscence, as it felt like we were locking people into a past life rather than accepting them as they were, in the here and now. I believe one of the first things we have to accept is that our loved ones are undergoing significant change when they're living with dementias, a change we have to be accepting of. Also at the forefront of my thinking was we must be inclusive, responsive, and adaptable. Finding artists and performers who would work with me was not easy, but a core developed gradually and were both amazing and generous with their creativity and risk-taking. And all the shows were produced by Spare Tire. So here's the guiding principles: inclusive, responsive, and adaptable, go with the flow with the person living with dementia, accept the gifts that they offer, remain in the present moment, in their present moment, don't be afraid of silence, take risks, and always remain curious. Once Upon a Time was based on a classic folk tale that exists in many different cultures. And it's the classic story of King Lear. It was about inheritance, parent-child relations, sibling relations, and downsizing. It was researched at a very well-known Jewish care home in southwest London, Nightingale. So the photographs of Once Upon a Time are of older white European women experiencing sensory stimulation with projected moving images, touch sensation with brushes, and bubbles in a care home. It worked very well for 9 out of 10 people living with dementias, but it threw up several new questions that were answered in the garden. The central question was, what if we remove the barrier of language? Our experience of Once Upon a Time demonstrated to us how much of a barrier language was to people living with dementias, especially those with advancing dementias. Either they didn't recognize the word or they were struggling to speak it. Other questions were, why are people living in care homes not being taken out into the gardens? Could we do a messy show in a care home? Could I transform their indoor space and bring the outside in? The garden was a multi-sensory show which relied heavily on projection, smell, touch, taste, sound, what some would call total theatre. The garden went through the seasons, and communing with nature became a metaphorical spiritual journey And often at the end of the show, there would be total silence. We would just sit with people in silence, hold their hands as they wept, or listen to them speak while they spoke about whatever had been triggered by this beautiful experience. We had touched people with and without dementia on a deep emotional level. The images of the garden are of older people interacting again with stimulus from sound, movement, smell, touch. The show was so successful. We toured it up and down the UK for 3 to 4 years, visiting 500 plus care homes, daycare centres, lunch clubs and arts venues. It had always been my wish to be culturally diverse and inclusive, regionally, ethnically diverse, urban, suburban and rural. Whilst touring the garden, I started to wonder why we weren't reaching ethnically diverse communities and why were most participatory arts organisations not working with or reaching out to these communities. By the way, I posed this concern about 10 years ago at the Beeltner Festival in Dublin. So here we are again, a decade later, still asking this same very question. From the garden came this question. Where are the ethnically diverse communities? Why are they not responding to our publicity and literature? I was acutely aware that they were not engaging with any theatre and arts. I decided to focus on one diverse community, the South Asian community, because I felt I knew it and understood it, and I wanted to respond in a meaningful way without overextending the organisation I was leading at that time. We actively sought out social groups, lunch groups, women's groups, older people's groups and care homes that were working with South Asian communities. I conducted the research with Elizabeth Lynch, asking, is dementia a taboo within the South Asian diaspora? Could the arts dismantle this taboo? How culturally specific does the project have to be? The report is available on the Baring Foundation website. We spoke to 120 people, including doctors, scientists, community workers, and of course, older people. People from different religions, with different languages and cultures. We focused a lot on women's groups, as we knew that they were the main carers. When we went to speak to them, we bought them gifts of savoury and sweet food. We had tea with them, we asked questions, or simply listened to the stories that they wanted to share. It was easy, it was glorious, it was fun, and it was hard work. But it encouraged me more than ever to produce the next show with its theme of love for a South Asian community. The photos of Love Unspoken, the next show, are of older South Asian people taking part by dancing and singing in the show, as well as being in the audience. I knew I would be making a non-verbal show focusing on smell, movement and sound. I brought together artists, and for over a year we played with ideas until we felt that there was something of a structure and a concept emerging. We tried and tested our ideas out with the groups. I wanted those living with dementia, and especially the carers, to be involved in the show, and in fact secretly hoped that they would perform in the show with us. I was nervous of exploring love with the older South Asian community. I wasn't sure how they were going to react to it. But with care, we presented different scenarios, and the response was beautiful towards our thoughtful exploration. It resonated with the community. Many tears were shed. Throughout my journey, my parents had become a great source of inspiration for me. The garden was dedicated to my green-fingered mother and her love of plants. Love Unspoken was dedicated to my father's love of my mother, which he only expressed openly after her death. And it enabled me to find joy with other older Asians across England. Effectively, they became my surrogate parents. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Artie. Just like with Mary, there's so much I'd like to say, but I'm conscious of time, so we do need to move on. But for those that it would help in terms of visual, Like Artie, I'm ethnically diverse. Artie, you're challenging my terminology, but in a positive way. I'm ethnically diverse. I've got grey hair as well, and I've got tortoiseshell spectacles as well. But I'm in dark coloured clothing at the moment. But I need to move on. So our third speaker, it's Ronald AMANZE, a poet, musician, and ambassador for Dementia Society's Dementia Voices, also Alzheimer's Society Dementia Voices. As this discussion is very much about those living with dementia, we were keen to invite Ron here today. And in this short pre-recorded video called Making a New Language, Dementia, Music and Me, Ron will talk about how music and culture can widen the conversation on dementia and how it has helped him live well with dementia. The reason we wanted Ron to talk today was because we saw an article about him for Alzheimer's Society blog, which was for Black History Month in October 2020. There, Ron talked about his childhood, his love for music, and how this shaped his identity and what it means to him now, post-dementia diagnosis. We will now play you the talk, and we're going to play Ron's pre-recorded video.
How do I describe myself? I'm a Black man of African heritage, born in the West Indies, Jamaica, now a senior citizen, but I'm a senior citizen that feels he's still the young man he was many years ago. I'm wearing a waistcoat. I've got loads of waistcoats. I seldom wear them, about 50 waistcoats, believe it or not. Most of them, because I used to be in the music industry, and I'd often be getting things donated or given to me. So I acquired loads of clothes over the years. But I've got a waistcoat on, I've got a blue tie, I've got a shirt that has not been ironed, and I'm in front of a wall, which is also like my diary. So whenever I got an idea or something to remember, I write it on the wall, and then after a couple of weeks or months, I paint over it. Music totally shaped my identity because music was also very much the backdrop and the front drop to my life. Everything I did involved music, going out, hanging around with my friends. So music created who I am. It also connected me with my heritage. I realized through music that I was a part of a culture which was different to what I had grown up with in my earlier teens. I realized that there were alternative cultures. Everything was underpinned by being British, the British culture. And I had no acquaintance with my personal culture until I was about 11 or 12, when I started to go to local events with my dad and go to the local barber shop where the people from Jamaica would get together and talk about, reminisce about their world and their life. And there'd be all kinds of conversations which were different from what I was acquainted with. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. And it just seeped into my own existence, because the music started to become who I was. It was a new discovery for me that I needed an alternative way to communicate what I felt and how I felt to the world that I found myself in after I got the diagnosis of onset of dementia. Because when I got the diagnosis of dementia, I was in a very strange place, and I was always having turbulent conversations with service supporters, with people in general. Just getting on the bus could be an argument and would be an argument. And because my mind was so kind of totally malfunctioning, I would always find myself arguing with people, right or wrong. And it really came to an end when I fell out with all the support services in my local area, and they decided to ban me from all the arts facilities. So that really put me into a state of real sadness, silent fury, like they're banning me. I'm banned, and I was really kind of chaotic thinking and everything. it wasn't anger, it was really frustration and sadness and anxiety and a mixture of feelings, emotions that I was going through. And I actually got to a stage where I literally stopped engaging with the world and I cut the world off because I wasn't communicating well with the world, and I felt the world just wasn't understanding me. And I started to write about what I felt. Then I started to share it with people, and they suddenly took note of my conversation. People have embraced me more from the conversations that I've written in my dementia diaries, and more has happened for me from writing my feelings and thoughts using creative expressions than has ever happened for me when I just try to speak in the norm. Generally, or in my case, I would like people to understand and recognize that despite the diagnosis which I've got, when they meet me as somebody who is full of enthusiasm for life and full of ability, and they need not treat me no different from anybody else. People are more than the diagnosis. That's what you always hear people say. But truly recognize that people are more than their diagnosis, and they still have aspirations and abilities which need to be nurtured and supported where possible, and not discounted as being unachievable or too romantic. I do need support, very much so. I recognize I need support, but the support needs to be the right kind of support. All too often, people seem to kind of wrap me up in cotton wool or to kind of slow me down in life, not realizing that for me, the joy of life is me being enthusiastic about life and doing things. What I need to be now is encouraged, and it's more therapeutic and more effective when you encourage people to do things, especially when it's clear that those people want to do more than just sitting in a chair. I love being referred to as an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society, and I would like to really start performing like an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society and really promote a very positive message for the Alzheimer's Society, especially in terms of engaging sections of our community who don't really appear on their radar or they're not reaching, and I think I could contribute to. Oh, what I want to do, that's a different ball game now. That is amazing. Simply, that's one of the most amazing things that I've experienced since the many ordeals that I went through, whereby I constantly felt totally excluded, totally culturally misunderstood, totally no longer relevant to the picture of life. And they actually made me a director. They actually made me or allowed me to be meaningfully involved with their organization. So what I hope to do for that organization is to really play a relevant role to promote their agenda and also introduce an alternative way of working, which essentially is around social prescribing enterprise through the creative industries. I'm happy to be no more than just someone enjoying the moment and the experiences of being a part of the organization. But I would like there to be an end result that is very meaningful and it shines so other people can embrace it as something to do or value. I've now got a new career pathway that has come out of me being diagnosed with dementia. There's two people at Alzheimer's Society who made the world of difference. It's just how they responded to me. They invited me to be involved in things, even though it was in a very simple way. Just the mere fact of inclusion makes a lot of difference. And those few moments of opportunity they fueled me to want to do more and believe that I can do more and I can engage. Encouragement is such a huge therapy. There are some real great examples of art and diversity that I've encountered and experienced with the Deep Network. I do a radio show with the Deep Network, and that's all about arts and diversity and inclusion and people communicating and enjoying song and promoting poetry. And I think we need good examples that are really working. And my thing is very passionate about engaging with people of my heritage, but it's very passionate about engaging with just people of all shapes and forms who are so often excluded from acceptance because of the so-called diagnosis or perception or stigma or assumptions. Good conversations, real conversations is what it's all about. Me having a meaningful life is doing things, yeah, that are more about not just the moment, but also prospects for the future, and not always about revisiting things of my past or things that are just comfortable to reside in. Definitely is not about just memories. And because sometimes revisiting memories can be quite sad, but I am always excited to explore adventure for the future and for life and what can be done. I'm full of romantic ideas and dreams for life. You know, I'm learning to fly at the moment. I'm actually learning to fly, albeit it all in my mind, but I try to think of wonderful things. You know, I actually try to occupy myself with beautiful thoughts. That's what art can do, and that's what art does do if you're encouraged to explore it.
Oh my goodness, Ron. There's so much I want to say, like with Mary and with Artie. Ron, in your own words, we find you to be full of enthusiasm. We find you to be full of ability. We find you to be more than that diagnosis you received. Oh my gosh, you're learning to fly. Well, be encouraged. We believe you can fly. We need to move on. There's going to be a part 2, but before part 2, we need a call of action. We're going to be able to ask all the speakers some questions in part 2, but some of you've noticed there's a Q&A box. You can ask some questions there. But before we finish part 1, we need a call of action. We can't just have 3 wonderful speakers and we just listen, we enjoy, we just thrive on it. We don't have a call of action. So I'm going to introduce you with Salva Johnston from the Alzheimer's Society. We'll talk about the Dementia Friends program, talk about some of the aims of the program, give us a call to action, how we can join it, how we can get involved. I'm sorry myself, I'm so excited, but over to you now.
Hello, thank you, Mike. This is wonderful, thank you. My name is Rosalva Johnston. I work for the Alzheimer's Society as one of 2 dementia-friendly community coordinators in Essex. Our role are founded by Essex County Council, and our aim is to make Essex a more dementia-friendly county. For those of you who are partially sighted, now I would like to describe myself and my surroundings. I'm from Peru. I am from a Latino background. I have brown eyes, light hair. I'm wearing a blue jumper with white stripes, and I have also glasses. I'm sitting at my desk at home, and the wall behind me has a sideboard with drawers and a small plant on top. First of all, thank you all for attending today's event, all of you. This event will be recorded and it will be made available on Essex Cultural Diversity Project website as part of a bank of digital experiences to keep people connected and during this 3rd lockdown. Please click on the resources pages for more information of dementia support and the dementia and the arts. I'm delighted really to say that this event has taken place today. And I would like to say thank you again to all of you, Mary, Ron, Mike, Artie, Indy, but especially Jo. She's been wonderful. She's such a support. And Essex Cultural Diversity is the leading forum in broadcasting, promoting, and celebrating our diversity, cultural richness in Essex. This event will mark the start of a long-term partnership that aims to bring health, diversity, and the arts to the forefront for people living in Essex. The aim of today's event, such as Mike was saying, is to bring awareness of dementia to our diverse community, share best practice, and expand our Dementia Friends network. Dementia Friends is a program launched by Alzheimer's Society to raise awareness about dementia, to tackle the stigma about the condition. As you know, dementia is not just a natural part of aging. It is caused by disease of the brain. As dementia progresses, memory and all the many skills and functions controlled by the brain will be less responsive. However, it is possible to carry on and continue to live the life that you choose, even after dementia diagnosis. Our work in the community of Essex focuses on improving inclusion, quality of life for people living with dementia, and supporting those who care for them. We work in partnership, supporting organizations or businesses in Essex to help them better understand how to meet the needs of people affected by dementia. As an example, my colleague Mark Neville and I work with local consuls, parish consuls, doctors, dentists, hospitals, charities, faith groups, retail business, primary schools, colleges, communities, organizations, heritage sites, museums, and of course, those involved in music and the arts. Supporting our work in Essex are the Dementia Action Alliances. There are 14 action alliances in Essex. The DAAs are groups of key people who work and who look at what changes needs to happen in their geographical area and work in partnerships in their communities to make those changes a reality. These changes leads to a dementia-friendly community. This is a national organization. This is a national recognition program that encourages everybody who shares responsibilities for ensuring that the people with dementia feel understood, valued, and play a positive role in their communities. I am very proud to work for the Alzheimer's Society, which is the leading charity supporting people affected by dementia. But I believe, like the Alzheimer's Society, is doing an amazing job. However, I think we still lots more that we can do. And one of the key areas that we are committed to improving our services is for people from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. One of the Alzheimer's Society's key values is better together. To make this value reality, we need to be able to work in partnership with whole communities, particularly with mixed ethnic minority groups. Representative needs to come forward, come to help us how our service currently operates, how we can ensure that our current services as well as our future services are truly inclusive. We need a greater representation from our underrepresented communities. Please come forward. We need your help. We will be sending an exit survey to all attendees at the end of today's event to collect your thoughts. What shall we do next? What do you think? So if you're able to help us in our aim to make communities more dementia friendly, the whole Essex more dementia friendly, please do come forward and share your thoughts. I hope today's event has helped us continue our journey in creating something very special in Essex. I'm enthused from all the talks of our attendees today. And I hope that you are too. And hope you can actually work together to get that genuinely inclusive county of Essex. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
As you know, this event is in 2 parts. I've lost a little bit of time, but I've got a plan for us to catch that back up. We've been using the Zoom webinar format for the talks and presentations from these 3 awesome speakers, but we're going to want to meet you all face to face. And so we're going to go over to a Zoom meeting format. Please join us for part 2. We're going to have a broad discussion about the issues raised by the 3 amazing guest speakers. We're going to share some examples of good practice. We're going to make some new connections. We're going to support each other. So please do come back full of the excitement you've already got. Very much look forward to seeing you on screen. See you at 2:10, everyone.